And welcome back to This is Dunder Moose. I'm glad you guys are with us here. And I am excited for tonight's show. Sorry for the throat. I totally aspirated water right before we came on camera. Tim can tell you. But
Choker.
a lot of times when I'm doing this show, I get to talk to somebody that I've never met before. And so we try to keep it cordial and become friendly over the course of the thing. I think Dornell once referred to this whole interview thing as a friendship simulator. But this time I'm excited because I actually know this guy, Stormforge69.
65.
65. Sorry. That was Freudian, I bet. Anywho, yeah, so you wanna introduce yourself a little bit and tell them how we got to know each other. Oh, time out. Before you do, as you guys can see on my screen, big congratulations to Alexander McCrease on the phenomenal success. This is day one of his Kickstarter. The target was 50,000. As you can see on my screen, he's already up to 181,000. 14 minutes fully funded. So rock on, Alexander. That's pretty cool. I'm pretty sure it's because you came on this show. So yeah, just had to throw that out there. Sorry, didn't mean to step on your intro. Go ahead.
No, you said you wanted to do that, and I told you it'd take about 15 minutes, and
Yeah.
you know,
So new employee orientation. Like it didn't take one day before you and I recognized, I don't know if it was like the certain gene or what.
it's the nerd gene.
The nerd gene.
It's our nerdar.
Welcome, Brown Wizard. Welcome, Macho Mandolph. Good to have you here. Yeah, good recovery. Thank you. We keep it smooth here on This is Dunder Moose. But yeah, no. So Stormforge came to work where I work, and we don't need to say the name, but part of the new employee orientation is we share a little factoid about ourselves, and he kept it generic. If I'm remembering correctly, you just said I like to play games. I like to play all kinds of games.
Yes, I'm a huge gamer. Yeah.
Yeah.
And people always run to video games.
No. Yeah, that's what they think.
Neophyte.
Yeah. But then afterwards, I had just learned about a game called Dungeon Crawl Classics, and I was getting into it. And turns out Stormforge knows a thing or two about that game.
I have played it a lot. Yeah.
So, and you've been playing for 43
years.
43 years, right? So he heard about me playing first edition in Trillopulus, and he was actually the one that recommended a illusionist thief gnome. So Foam the gnome, if you guys are wondering where it came from.
Yeah. He texted me, he goes, thinking of making up a thief. What race? I go, no.
Yeah.
He's like, oh my God. We're so right. I go, yeah. I'd have dust some of those brain cells off to remember some of that, but it's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah.
So let's go back then. What was your first experience in the hobby? Like,
so as ninth grade in high school, second semester started 1980.
okay.
Give you an idea how old I really am. And this guy walks up, sits down, instant best friends. We start talking. I never met him before. He basically lived across the main street from where I lived. And we kind of started talking about, what we liked and Lord of the Rings and stuff.
Yeah.
In fact, he had a picture book that he brought in of the Ralph Bakshi version of Lord of the Rings. So I had an active imagination back then, and I didn't really have any good outlets for it. And I watched, for me, Lord of the Rings, in order of best to worst, is the Rankin Bass, then the Ralph Bakshi, and then Peter Jackson's side project, right? Okay. I wish Where There's a Whip Was a Way was my ringtone. Where there's a whip, there's a way.
You know what? I don't know if I knew the difference between the two original, the Bakshi and the Rankin Bass cartoons.
So Rankin Bass used to do a lot of different animations. He did The Hobbit. They did the Lord of the Rings. Bakshi's was the Fellowship of the Ring Through the Two Towers, live action with that was colorized over with animation.
Oh,
So it was really different for its time,
like
right? The
that
80s
rotoscope
were,
style.
well, yeah, kind of. The Hobbits were all animations, but like, some of the other, like all the orcs were real people. They just colorized over them and they made the orky looking stuff. And, you know, Tron, that was it for me, right? And
Yeah.
early 80s it just exploded with all this technology and all kinds of stuff. And so this guy tells me, "Oh yeah, you ever heard of Dungeons and Dragons?" I said, "No." And at the time, the Holmes box set was out, so we started getting into that. And he'd been introduced to it with the small box set through another friend of ours, and I was instantly hooked. And this is a great outlet for imagination, right? So I used to go over to his house after school and hang out, and him and one of the other friends of ours were, and we were all minis, right? We weren't very theater to mind. We were more
Yeah.
into the minis.
The war
And
game aspect.
yeah, yeah, he and I started painting together way back. And it really helped get into that because it was, I'm a visual learner, and this was it. And we started with 1E, and I've played all the way through 5E.
Okay.
uh
So, do you remember the first character you made?
yeah, he was, I think he was a thief. And we went to this dungeon, and he used to draw his dungeons on K&E graph paper,
Okay.
which was, you remember K&E graph paper? Do you
I
ever?
don't know what K&E stands for. I know what graph
So
paper is.
K&E was, it was like an engineering graph paper. So it was a light green background, and you had the 1-inch squares, but you also
Mhm.
had half squares kind of inside of it with lighter lines, so you could do like 5-foot hallways and stuff. And
Cool.
physics class, all those guys, KE graph paper, everybody used it. So that's what he drew all his dungeons on. And I would use blank sheets to map. And my first character was 2 or 3 of us. We were actually playing in study hall, and but we go down this hallway. There's a triangular alcove with a lever. I walk in, throw the lever, gate comes down. I start getting electrocuted.
This is your
So
first game or your first character?
his first character, pretty
Okay.
close to the first game. It's probably first or second dungeon I was in. So everybody's trying to do bend bars, lift gates, and everybody's failing it. Meanwhile, I'm taking damage every round. Taking damage every round. It gets to me. I need to do like 05 to lift it. 07 dead.
Ah,
So my first character died
time out.
very
Time out
quickly.
real quick. Um, '05, '07. There are a ton of people playing the game nowadays that have no idea what you mean by that.
Okay, so in 1E, when you rolled up your 6 stats, for strength, if you were a fighter and you rolled an 18, you get to roll percentiles, and then you could have 1810 strength, 1800 strength, 1850 strength, and they give you additional bonuses to hit and damage.
Yeah,
But everybody had a bend bars, lift gates, which was like your strength to bend bars or lift gates. And
yeah, and it's a D100, right? And you're trying to roll under your number.
yeah, trying to roll under your number. So
So,
like I think a
just to
fighter,
put it in their heads how dramatic that was. He had a 5% chance of rolling it. He rolls the first one and it's a 0,
yeah,
and then he rolls a 7. He missed it by
so
2%.
yeah, missed it by 2%. Now, a fighter with an 1800 strength, I think had like a 35 or 40. I think that was their percent or something like that. So it's pretty high. Um, so my and with the name Stormforge, the biggest character I made up was a dwarf named Garrick Stormforge, and I played him for a long time, and we built some campaigns actually around him. And
Cool.
yeah, he was like, if our group had an iconic character for me, he would have been one of them.
So as Dornell points out, study hall D&D hooks kids. You probably learn more math in study hall playing that game.
Well, and look, here's what I'll tell you playing this game over all that time is, and this is what I tell people who talk about their kids wanting to get into it. It's great for social interaction. You do
Mhm.
learn some math. It's resource management. Um, it's strategy. It's problem solving. It's just hanging out with friends. It's just laughing at the stupidest shit
Yeah.
as a child, even as an adult, and it's just fun, right? So th there's a lot of upsides to it. And even my parents who were, we were Catholic, so, they didn't go and get into the I'm worshiping demons or satanic stuff, but
Was that more of a Protestant thing?
it was in every it was just prevalent in the time, right? Because everybody just was freaked out about it. I mean, there's videos of Gary Gygax talking about, to people about this. Like
Yeah.
it's nothing like that.
It's interesting. I'm a Protestant. I grew up a Protestant. My parents have actually since converted to Orthodoxy. But I remember thinking it was really funny when Harry Potter was the target and everyone was saying, "Oh, that's gonna, turn kids to the devil worship." And it's like the very people that love the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe and Lord of the Rings,
Well,
like those have wizards, those have magic, and
Tom Hanks' movie Mazes and Monsters didn't really help.
I still haven't seen that one.
Yeah, it's
I've like
quirky.
hovered over it on the
Yeah,
streaming services, and I'm like,
because it
ah,
was based on a dude I think that went to Michigan State University, so
yeah,
it's got a little homeschool feel. You know what I mean?
right on.
Yeah.
Dornell says best way to bend bars is an enlarged spell on a captured monster. We call it a crowbold. Just put a little kobold. What was the guy's
Yeah.
name in the Sunless Citadel?
Oh,
Meepo.
Meepo.
Yeah, just stuff Meepo under the gate and they make him big.
Yeah,
Roll him.
one of the guys. Yeah, he killed him.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. I feel like Meepo always dies, but usually it's the white
Well,
dragon wormling that gets him.
this was your adventure hook, and we kept saying that we're kind of skipping around here, but
There
when
we are.
when
It's all right.
3E
We're
first
hanging, bro.
started, we were going through all this Forge of Fury, Sunless Citadel, Heart of Night Fang Spire, and the one guy, he always played like I joke with you, his alignment was like chaotic murder, and he would just we
He
were
just
like we made murder hobos go, Jesus, I mean,
just see him like he's all pathetic. He's rolled up in that carpet and he's like whimpering and he's just
right.
like
Well, the funny thing was he was playing a gnome,
oh well, there you go.
and he picked a god who's I think it was Caladur Smooth Hands. And yeah, is anybody gonna say it? Right. So he's like, hey, I have my racial enemy is Kobold, right? That's his thing,
Yeah.
right? So he sees him, and then because I can't remember, I think it was captured or something. He goes and he starts to talk to him, and he goes, and the DM starts to say something, and he's just like, I snap his neck. We're like, what? He just kills him. That's what he did. So we go through this dungeon, and we're like, this is horrible. It didn't track. We don't know what we were doing, whatever. And our DM, who, it's the guy I went to high school with, right? And he's like
Yeah.
talking, like, I think there was this DM
He'd been practicing his
chat site.
Meepo
Yeah. He
accent for
goes,
weeks before.
well, he goes, uh, they killed the Meepo. And everyone's like, they killed Meepo, and like, yeah, he goes, he's the hook.
Like, you're like, who the heck is
So
Meepo?
later on, towards the end of the adventure, he's looking at his character's guy. He goes, "Oh, hey, wait a minute! I don't really hate kobolds after all." I'm like, oh, you idiot! And that's what it was like gaming with this dude. He was,
Oh, whoops. I thought
oh
I
my
hated
god,
those guys. Like Meepo was the original Jar Jar, right? Like
yeah. I mean,
like
but he
the
was the hook to the whole thing, and he was like an iconic little character. We just snapped his neck and kept going. I'm like, all right,
I love it when it's easy like that. He was all tied up, he's whimpering. All
yeah,
right. Well, you mentioned something that I found interesting. You said it teaches math, it teaches social skills,
hmm,
and you said resource management.
oh yeah,
And I wonder if that's still true. Like, what changes have you seen to the game since when you started, and or the industry?
So in 1E, everybody's class chart, they all had a different um, track for experience. Like
Mm-hmm.
I think a thief was like 1250, a wizard was like 1750, something like that. A fighter, they all had different numbers.
Yeah.
So you got experience by the monsters you killed, but you also got experience for the treasure. And in the very beginning, we weren't really big on the encumbrance thing.
Hmm.
So we were hauling out stuff that we probably shouldn't have. But you added up the treasure, the gems, and I ended up becoming like I did all the upkeep because nobody else wanted to do that. So I started doing
You
all
were the
that.
treasurer.
Treasure, I kept track of all the magic items, all the stuff we found, who wants to get what. I would put somebody's name next to it. Okay, you get this weapon, you get this item, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then I would take all the gems, add them up, take 10%, add it to the treasure, tell the DM, okay, this is the amount of treasure we got. He would add that to our experience total. And then you go, okay, wizard, you're getting this amount of experience, fighter, you're getting this amount, and everybody get different amounts, and you'd move up.
Mm-hmm.
Then you'd have to go to find a town and find a fighters guild, a wizards guild, and you'd have to pay to get leveled up.
So the level up wasn't an automatic. It's not like a video
Oh
game
no,
where you get enough XP, the glittering gold sparkles around your shoulders,
yeah,
and then you're
no,
like, no, you had to
you had to go
you
find
had to
somebody.
train and you had to
Yeah,
pay for it too.
uh-huh. Yeah, and you had to find somebody too.
Bob's asking, did your DM rank the players? Because that's part of 1E as well. Like, does the thief steal stuff? Does the thief check for traps? If the wizard comes back to town and hasn't used up all his spells on the sortie, that's a lower grade, right?
I don't know. He never told me that stuff, but yeah, the thief used all his. In fact, this guy that killed Meepo, and when we were in our second edition characters, he was fleecing the party, and we never knew it. And I'll get into that story in a minute. Fucking guy. Best friends. 43 years, never changes.
So
Don't change.
depending on the DM ranking, it would either take 1 week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Like however well you played your role, it would take you longer to train. And each week was 1500
Yeah.
GP per
Now
level,
he
right?
didn't tell us what he did for that, but yeah, we would have different time frames to train. Yeah, so I'm
Okay.
sure he took that into account. The monk, which was an appendix class, it wasn't in the main class because Gary hated the monk, but it was in the book for some reason.
It's hard to get to be a monk. It's hard to get to be a
Yeah.
bard for sure.
Oh yeah. I mean, you got to be a fighter, a thief, a
Yeah, yeah.
wizard, a sales agent. I mean, you got to be everything. But so the monk, when you got to 9th level, you had to go find another monk who was 9th level, and you guys had to spar because
That's
from
right.
9th level on, you only had so many monks at that level. So you actually had to fight one out and take their level from it, and they would go back down to like I think it was halfway through the last level. So if you and me were, if I just became a 9th level monk, I'd hunt you down, and we'd fight, and
Yeah.
it was also non-lethal. If
There
I
can be
won,
only one,
you
right?
would go back to halfway through 8th level, and I would stay at 9th and keep going.
That is so cool. I mean, talk about like a rule that does
Yeah,
world building, right?
yeah.
But look who's in the chat. Griffith Morgan, freshly back from ArnieCon 1. Welcome, Griff. Good to have you. And I'm glad you popped in right at this minute because remember me telling you that I had a friend who said that you were one of the best GMs he ever played for? This is the guy. And he said that, what did you say, Griff? You said he probably was on drugs.
He's got the most laid back presentation of a DM I've ever seen, and it's cool.
Yeah.
It's not just the guy reading. Okay, you enter the room, and it's a 40 by 30 room, and you see a chair over here and a dresser over here, and blah blah blah. He just sat back, and this is kind of he go. So when you go into this room, what you see is it's approximately 40 feet. You see a bed over in the north corner. You see a dresser over in the south corner, and what would you like to do? Which is how Gary used to do. What would you like to do?
Yeah.
And
It's so funny that you
it was,
leaned back because there is a picture of him on Twitter right now
yeah,
from ArnieCon DMing Tanisborg, and he's like sitting back, his hands are up, it just
yeah.
like totally
And it
chill,
was in
laying it out.
Tonisborg at GaryCon in 2019. That's yeah, it was the coolest thing I ever seen.
And I don't know if he knew he was talking about you, but he mentioned you when I had him on the show. He was talking about how he likes to have a player that he can turn to and kind of gets the rest of the group organized. That it's called a caller, right? The guy that just like gets all the cats herded in one direction and then tells the
Yeah.
DM, "Here's what our plan is," right?
Well, we always picked the party leader, and then that's how we rolled forever.
Yeah.
Even in through second edition and third and 3.5, and we sort of skirted fourth, and yeah,
Yeah. So, because I'm a Johnny come lately. As you know, I
yeah,
mostly, when I was younger, I played Star Wars D6, um, and
love
got
Star
back
Wars
into it.
D6.
Played fifth edition, and just was not satisfied with it. And it's part of that's on me because I didn't learn all the rules to fifth edition. Um,
Yeah, um,
but there is something about the old ways where you can rely on your players to keep track of encumbrance because it matters.
yeah, we started having to learn it, at one point, because I think when you got into second edition, keeping track of treasure went away, and it was pretty much your experience and things like that. And then we started really doing encumbrance, and that changed things because
Yeah,
you
and
got to
I
leave
feel
all
like
that
people.
copper behind. Start leaving the copper behind. Stake the silver. Electrum.
Yeah,
What is that? Yeah,
I feel like that is one of the things that modern gamers probably look at as being irritating. Encumbrance, I don't want to play spreadsheet the game, right? Let's just ignore coin weight. That's like even a setting in D&D Beyond right now is you can ignore coin weight. And but what they don't realize is that was a load bearing rule, right? Like
it
because
was realism.
yeah, because it was realism, um because the amount you could haul out tied into how much experience points you got for the session
Right. Look, it
and
was it
training,
was
like all of the weird heavy stuff that people just kind of hand wave away nowadays.
yeah.
It was supporting not just the mechanics of the game, but story and making your player choice meaningful,
Right.
right? Like you had to make interesting decisions based on the limitations that the rules gave you.
Sure. So when you found a bag of holding or a portable hole,
Oh
I
man,
mean,
yeah.
you salivated because we bring portable holes back to town, open it up, and it looked like a pool of coin because it was just filled. You know, we're
Yeah.
wrecking economies with these adventuring. But
So
yeah,
since Griff jumped in, and you met him at a convention, that's one of the other things that we talk about that I've never done. I've never gone to a role playing convention.
mhm,
I really wanted to go to ArnieCon, especially since it was the first one. There was a family discussion that went on about that, and
there always is.
I got the FOMO. I had to watch from afar. So I've been like kind of watching through Twitter as Griff has been posting that, and there's also I forget the name. There's another Twitter account that is just for ArnieCon. Um, but like so they got to play on Dave Arneson's original ping pong table where all this stuff got created. He was running Tanisborg, and the great Saveni was sitting there, who wrote the dungeon. So when he gets back, we'll have to see what he has to say because I feel like that would have been a nerve wracking thing to run it for. But like some historicity going on there. How did you get started with the whole convention thing?
So 1982 was the first convention I went to, and it was Gen Con.
Okay,
And so I was at my buddy's house, um, the our DM, and we were hanging out doing something. And he gets a phone call, and this guy says, "Hey, I know you've been DMing D&D, and we're inviting you to come to the convention as a DM." And he's like,
cool.
"Yeah." He's like, "Wow, that's pretty cool." And, so we're like, yeah, we should go to that, right? Because, we had kind of just been hearing about it, and he was collecting Dragon magazine, and we'd always hit all the hobby stores and whatnot. So, at any rate, shortly after that, another friend of ours, more his friend than mine from high school, calls him, starts asking about stuff like that out of the blue. And he's like, something doesn't seem right. So he checks in and finds out it was probably that guy getting somebody to crank him, which we assume that happened. So I think this
It
was
was
in
hard to
80.
have fun when back in the 80s. We didn't have
This was in 81.
we didn't
So
have
then,
AI to talk to with our problems. We had to just
yeah,
prank each other.
right, exactly. Oh yeah, that was great. So then we started thinking about it, and we're like, we should go next year. So we started saving up. And back then, to go to Gen Con, you mailed away and you got, if I remember right, you got, they would mail you the information to fill out for your badge, and you'd mail it in, and you would get a program guide so you could pick your events and stay at your hotel. Now, the
Hmm.
program guide, I'm going to say, was something about that thick.
Okay.
It wasn't a whole lot. At the time, Gen Con was at University of Wisconsin Parkside. So you mail away, and this was kind of exciting when we started doing this a couple times, because you sit there and you figure out all the events you want to do, and you got like to do like one first, second, and third choice stuff for the
Okay.
different slots, and you mailed it away and you waited with bated breath. What's coming back? What am I going to get? Right.
Yeah.
So in the meantime, he calls him, this friend, and says, "Hey, we're going to Gary or Gen Con this year," and his jaw kind of dropped a little bit. I'm like, "Yep, joke's on you." And I've probably been to 30 of them.
Wow. Okay.
Because then it moved. It was there
Well,
for a couple years.
how
Then it
big
moved
was it in 81? Or did you go in 82?
82,
Yeah,
82.
how many people? Like, was it comparable to nowadays, or was it
Oh God,
smaller?
no! It
Or
was a couple thousand. It was at a university.
yeah.
Just a handful of thousands, right? So it was at Parkside, I think, through 84.
Okay.
'Cause I didn't go to 84. I went to 82, 83. 85, it moved to Milwaukee, and it stayed there till 2003. So I grew up on the Detroit side of the world. So when we would go, we would get up at 2:30 in the morning.
Oh my
It was
gosh.
an 8-hour drive to Milwaukee, and then we'd get there around 11 o'clock or whatever. There's some memorable drives with that. Like the first time we went, he had a Mustang, and it was
Sweet.
hot because it was always at the end of August,
Yeah.
like late August, like the 20th, 22nd, something like that. And um, I-94 was always under construction. It was just miserable. But we loved the drive. And Milwaukee was kind of a cool town. They had that Safe House bar. The Mecca was great, but it really outgrew it, and it moved to Indianapolis, I think 2004.
Okay.
And it was
Doran will
and
ask, what is the appeal of such a large convention?
well, you get to meet all kinds of different people, a lot of different games. Like I didn't always go and play D&D because that's what we did at home.
Yeah.
We'd get into the AD&D Open because that was a big thing back then, and a lot of those tournament modules um, would show up in the stores, and you could play them at home. Um, the dealer rooms or exhibit hall, you could find stuff that you couldn't find locally. You could meet the people that were designing it. You could talk to the authors, the artists, the game designers. I mean, 1986, that's me and Gary Gygax. We used to go and actually talk to him. And just two other friends, I had him crop out of the picture, three others. And one of them just goes, "Hey, can we buy you lunch?" And we're like, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "Yeah, sure." We're like, What's happening?" Right. So
So
we
that's the
go
kind of
across
thing
the
that could
street.
happen is you could just have lunch with Gary Gygax.
Yeah. So back then you could. So we take him across the street around noon. We're hanging out at the bar, and we had lunch, hour and a half or something like that. Great conversation. He was writing the Gord the Rogue series of books, which were excellent. If you want to understand what, kind of the one he would be like in a real world, read those books. They were great.
What were the books again?
Gord the Rogue, Gord.
Okay.
And he had a companion named Chert, I think. He was like a barbarian or something like that. And really cool. I mean, it was really well written stuff, and kept me really engaged in the game. Right. So, and I started asking him things like, the G modules, the giant modules, G1, G2,
Mm-hmm.
G3. I
Against
go,
the Giants.
those things were so thin, but they were so full of life, right? I mean, there was so much detail to them, but there wasn't. And, he had told us, look, the rules are kind of like guidelines. I mean, they're there for you to use, but if we need them for other things, I mean, you can adapt those rules to anything. I mean, Robolar carried a 6-shooter. The S3 was a module of a crashed spaceship, so there's got to be rules for a laser weapon. So,
Yeah.
that's
Well, so the Appendix N stuff, right? Like
yeah,
he was widely read, and there were just
mhm,
things laying there for him to pick up and weave into the story.
yeah.
I
A
don't know
lot of
what
that
Darnell's
came
trying to
from
get
those.
started here. He says we must host DunderCon next year.
Well, if you really kind of want to know a lot about a lot of that, uh, watch Secrets of Blackmore at
Yes. Heck
uh,
yes.
Griff did it. I got it at Kickstarter. I watched it. It was awesome. I mean, it gives you the very earliest inception of the nucleus of this game,
That's
like
right.
pre Dave Arneson, pre Gary. It's an excellent watch. It really gives you an insight to how the whole thing came about. And
Did you
now,
just get back, Griff, and we started talking about your movie?
yeah. Oh no, it was great, Griff. I mean, I told you that when I met you before. I really enjoyed it. And now Pat Kilbane's making another one called The Secrets in Gary's Basement. That's
Mhm.
due to be out soon. Um, Pat Kilbane from Mad TV.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I've met him at Gary Con
Well, I didn't know he was a fan.
oh yeah, he's a big D&D player. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Uh,
Yeah,
him,
you've met some really famous people at these conventions, yeah?
Matt Lillard, Pat
Oh man.
Kilbane, Vince Vaughn, The Big Show, Joe Manganiello. Um, what's the drummer for Alice in Chains? What's his name? Tom. Can't remember. Tom Morello.
Okay.
Yeah, those guys are in Joe's gaming group.
Yeah, Griff says Dave was there from 65 onward.
Yeah. 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 It's really interesting. So yeah, all that stuff that like because I like the lore and that history, and I've always been a history buff, and I just eat that stuff up.
Well, it's yeah, for me, I don't know if it, and again, I do not want to offend anybody that's like way into 5e, but like my dissatisfaction with it pushed me into looking at these older style games. And I'm like, there is something about the origins of this hobby that set the world on fire.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it got diluted or it just is different, but the more that I'm learning about the old ways, the more fascinated I become.
I think 2E for me was my favorite version, and we did a lot of homebrew stuff. We went through a lot of modules. Tracy Hickman's Desert of Desolation series, the I series, one of my favorites. Um, Against the Slavers, A1 through 4. Um, Temple of Elemental Evil, it tops the list. Some of my most epic shit I've done has been in that module.
All right. Well, you can't mention that on this show and not get my follow-up question is can you tell us some of those stories, man? I want to
Oh
hear
yeah.
what went down and why it was memorable.
So our DM used to like to make up different magic items, and he had this one thing. It's a deck of summoning, and they had those, but he kind of made it a spin on his own. And
Okay.
every card, power level of the card was a different creature, and he created the stats for all of them and everything. If you threw an ace of spades, and it was one shot with the card, but if you threw the ace of spades, death would come out, and they would just go to the character you threw it at and go, "You're tired. Come with me," and off they'd go. Right.
Wow.
So we're in level 4 of the temple, and we're fighting the main leaders of the temple, right, kind of in the center there, and they're kicking our ass. And we were known for never running. We were stupid, just we it would come down to one roll. We'd get the roll and we'd keep going, and our DM was like, I don't know how to make you guys just run away. It's okay. And we just never would. But this was a time when we got to run, guys. And I was playing my dwarf, Stormforge. And we tell the chaotic murder guy, because he had the deck, we're like, throw a card just to cover our escape so we can get out of here, right? And we throw up a wall of fire.
Nice.
So he whips out a card. I was just hoping to be like a kobold or a bugbear just to run in and take a couple hits while we could run. He whips out a boulet. So I look at the DM, I go, "Can I ride that?" He goes, "Yeah, I don't see why not." Okay, I go, so I ride on it. I get on top of its back and I ride it through the fire. He goes, "You what?" I go, "I ride it through the fire." Because we got a boulet, and that thing was deadly in 2E. So the brother of chaotic murder, he had a fighter, and he was never going to be outdone. He goes, "Yeah, I jumped through the fire. I'll take the damage. I don't care." And everybody kind of goes through, and we just start fighting him, and we wiped him out. And he's looking at us like, "What the hell just happened?" The DM is like, "I had you guys running." I go, "He threw a boulet. If we'd have thrown a bugbear, we would have kept running." And I just went and I wrote it and went through. We used to do that shit to him all the time. It used to just aggravate him.
Well, you told me one. I think it was Temple of Elemental Evil, where one of the guys had gone way ahead of the party and had tried to set some stuff up, and you guys ruined it. You said you had like some pigments, and you like were drawing up like arbalests and stuff.
Oh, that's a different one. That's
okay.
that's the D series. We'll get to that one in a sec.
All right.
But let's talk a little bit about character death.
Yes.
It's a very polarizing subject online, and I've seen people on Facebook like, having to go to grief counseling for killing characters off.
What?
Hold on a sec.
Yeah, sure.
I'll be right back.
Okay. Yeah, that I feel like death is a huge deal in later versions. If you guys have watched Critical Role, and I've only seen a few episodes, so I'm not the expert on that, but I do know that one of the actors had such a traumatic death that was so meaningful to her. Like, she's actually got a tattoo of the 3 death saving throws and the I think there's 6 bubbles you fill in. You have to like make a save, and then I think you have to make 3 saves in a row to go back to 1 hit point and not bleed out. It's very, from what I understand, it's very difficult to die in 5th edition. And it made such an impact on her that she like got ink done in her flesh. And whereas since I've been playing Trollopolis, oftentimes when a character dies, we all have a huge laugh about it. Right now, there have been some players that didn't have a as good of a time with their character passing on. And there is a story. I want to get Doranol back. I want to get John Dacre, and I want to see if I can get Jeff Rowe, and share the all of the machinations of the cult of Zobleb. But yeah, I had a character that I loved, and Bob, you probably remember this guy. I only got to play him one session. His name, well, so I was rolling up a character, and I rolled up an assassin. That's one of the differences between 1st edition and 5th edition. I feel like 5th edition, they're like, well, what do you want to play? You get to pick your race, you get to pick your class, and then you get to assign the values to the strengths of the things you've already chosen. Whereas I feel like in first edition, um, yeah, it's the Bill Cosby guy. In first edition, like you roll up your guy and then you see what does his role fit, what is his race fit, what is his class fit. And so I had rolled up an assassin, but he was that's the other thing that's random in first edition is your height and your weight. And he was very tall and obese. He was an obese guy. And so I'm like, I'm trying to picture an obese assassin, and the only ones that I came up with were the Chris Farley movie where he had the sausage link nunchucks, or Ghost Dog, right? Because Ghost Dog was more serious, was an assassin. He's a samurai. And I'm not sure where oh yeah, that's where it was. It's hey, right? Fat Albert. And so Ghost Dog plus Fat Albert was my character, whom I named Huxtable. And Huxtable was so fun to play because I got to do the voice like whenever he talked. And I had the most it was the stupidest, it was the most ridiculous scene, right? So you are being graded by your DM based on sorry, based on performing your role, right? So as an assassin, it gets touchy because you may have somebody like a ranger in the party, or somebody who's like lawful good. And so like most of the times the assassins pretend to be thieves, and they're always like, oh, I'll check for traps, yeah. And then like they kind of wave their hand, like Bob's known for doing this, wave their hands over and be like, oh no, it's safe. Well, anyway, John Dacre's character always touches the thing, always grabs the fail snail shell. And he actually grabbed a legit, Jeffro had set us up with a tar baby, and he had grabbed it, and so stupid. He grabbed it and it wouldn't let him go. And he tried to do the burning hands, where you touch your thumbs together and burn it. He ignited the tar baby and he was burning to death. And everybody left. And I figured this is my chance to get my assassination roll and get a good grade as an assassin. And so I went up to try and offer him a coup de grace to get out of that, because he was burning to death and he couldn't get away. And they were like, it was a merciless party, and Bob made me do the voice when I was offering him, son, you seem like it in a bad way. I could end your suffering if you need to. And it was absolutely sublime and ridiculous at the same time. So yeah, all that to say, character death can be very traumatic. Going back up to shoot, where was it, Brown Wizard? I'm trying to find the comment. Yeah, 5e death is very hard. It can be very traumatic, or it can be something that the whole party has a good laugh about. And I feel like with the old school way of having multiple characters, I feel like the sting is softened a bit. So I don't know if that's where you were going with your comment about.
Yeah, look, apologies for
Oh, no worries, man.
She's still in California, so I had to intervene on something. So
I think what happens is your wife and mine, they have this sixth sense where they're like,
yeah,
somewhere.
Goes, oh my god, I forgot.
Somewhere my man is talking about D&D and having fun, and I need to put a stop to it. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no,
I'm just kidding, honey.
Couch is comfortable.
Can I grow my mustache back, please? No? Okay.
So, and look, I don't discount that people get upset about the death thing, but we grew up, it was just, you make bad choices, this is what happens, and we learn to live with it. But some of my best stories are some of my character deaths.
Yeah.
And, and it's really hard to die in 5e compared to 1e.
Oh yeah, maybe that's what Brown Wizard Winston meant when he said death is hard in 5e, because a lot of stuff has to go wrong.
Your second wind, you can get to a guy in a round. You can, so at any rate, we're in the fire node of return or of the temple of elemental evil, and we round a corner, and there's a pyrolisk, and it looks at me, and I got to make a save. 1.
Ooh.
So here's how the DM describes my death. You feel a burning sensation inside your stomach, and your head tilts back, and your mouth opens, and your insides turn to fire, and your mouth erupts in gouts of flame. I drop dead. I'm like, God damn it!
Was this Stormforge? Was this your
Yeah.
guy?
I had to. We raised them, but I'm like, God damn it! Back to town, 10,000 gold. Shit. Yeah, we used to purposely buy like when we got high enough level, we would hold on to like 25,000 gold piece gem for resurrections, or we would hold on to raised dead scrolls.
Yeah.
We'd have to find a way to get him back. But yeah, and there was
That
problem solving. How do I get him back?
That is a very descriptive death.
Oh, he loved to do that.
And it has what year did Stormforge pass on?
We sort of retired him.
I said pass on like.
Oh no, he's still alive. We retired him.
Oh, gotcha. So he lived through the death from the burning guts.
No, we raised him.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, okay, that's right.
Or whatever we did, resurrect, raise, however we did it. I can't remember. But yeah. In fact, that was, I think, the description in the monster manual when you did fail to save. He just elaborated a little bit. But yeah, I mean, that's a pyrolisk and 1E. It's giant fire chicken. I got killed by a giant fucking fire chicken.
The ignominious,
just like the cockatrice. Don't get touched by that tail.
Yeah. Dorno calls the 5e 1 hit point yo-yo. Because healing word, you can just throw that out as a reaction if I'm remembering correctly, and you don't even need to be in physical contact with the person. You're just like you just nope their death. He's like, nope.
My DM's favorite was 3-5, but we'll get back to the story about the D's.
All right.
So we go through the it's kind of my second time around going through the giant against the giant modules.
Yeah.
And I had to work this particular day, so I got there late. So I was playing a paladin named Brill. The reason I named him that is because I was reading the Belgariad by David Eddings, and for some reason I liked the name, and I used it. But those guys name shamed me because I used it, and I was like, really, fuckers, name shame? Especially the one guy, he hated making character names. So one of his character names was Char, which was the abbreviation for character. Really? Thanks.
Yeah. Well, you're not. I mean, you're getting sympathy from me here because you know my guys are named Huxtable and Foam the Gnome and the 5-fingered Viscount.
In the dungeon level of the G3, there's an altar to an elder elemental god, and one of the guys is playing a cleric. I'm a paladin of the same. I think it was Heronius, and I have 2 followers. One of them's a cavalier because we were using Unearthed Arcana rules back then. I'm at work. They decide they're gonna start using the altar, which I would have went like, no, what? No. So what the rule, what the module says is, if you're not a worshiper and you try to summon whatever, a tentacle comes out and it takes the closest, most powerful creature and takes it with it, which was my paladin. I roll up to the house, and it's my buddy's house, and he's like, we did a stupid thing. And I come down, he's got my little character, and they drew a coffin around him on the map. And I'm like, what'd you do? And he goes, well, I tried to, and I'm like, why would you do that? It also turned one of the other guys, who was a elven fighter, I think he was a fighter thief or fighter wizard, turned him insane. And he's like, oh, we got to go after the drow. And we're like, no, we can't do that yet. And he wants to go. So we wrestle him down and we tie him up. So we're literally at the table. We're all arguing about what are we going to do? How do we do this. We can't get him uninsane. We're not that powerful. What do we do? And he slips the DM a note and he goes, I slip my bonds and I run off into the depths of the unknown. So he just casually pulls his figure off while we're all arguing. Nobody notices it. So we finally say, here's what we're going to do. So we turn around. Where the fuck is he? And he's like, he escaped his bonds. Oh no, he Leroy Jenkins us and off into the D. So we're like, all right. So we rest up and we go to find him. And it's not hard because there's just this trail of carnage through the D1. I mean, he's just killing everything in sight. They would meet and have solo adventures. And he was like on his game. I mean, he was playing his epic sessions. And we come across like a little company of Svirfneblin, the deep gnomes.
Man,
and they're
you
like
said
our
that,
guides.
that just rolled off your tongue.
I'm surprised by that. It's been a long time since I said that. So they guide us through, right?
Yeah.
So we get to what would be considered the D2, and it's the Quotoan kingdom, whatever. And there's this giant ziggurat. We come out and through this one cave, and there's this giant ziggurat, and there's some like it goes off, and there's some cave entrances with these ledges and stuff. And we see a large Quotoan and two other ones. This happened to be a monitor Quotoan, which is what they were called in the book, and it had 90 hit points. I found out later.
Gosh.
So our wizard's like, throw a delay blast fireball at it because we think they're enemies. So he does. And he incinerates the two smaller ones, and this thing lives.
Yeah.
He pulls out this ornate conch shell. And the DM's like, all right, that's it for the night. Come back in 2 weeks because he's just alerted the entire module, basically. That, right?
Everybody's coming.
Right. So he's figuring all this out for 2 weeks. So 2 weeks, we get back to the table, and he goes, okay, we're going to take up where we left off. And, you got like X amount of rounds to go do something. And we still had these deep gnomes with us. So where do we go? We run to the top of the ziggurat, their temple. And right. So we've already killed one of their guys, and now we're desecrating their own temple by using it as a battleground. And I had Nolzur's Marvelous Pigments.
All right.
Back then you got the whole set of, like, I think it was 5.
And
so I'm painting matlets.
Just for people that don't know what that is, what does that do?
So Nolzur's Marvelous Pigments were like 5 pots of like a magic paint, and anything you painted would come to life, would be real. But you couldn't paint magic items. It could be mundane stuff, but it would work, right? So you could paint doors. In this case, I painted mantlets, were like these rolling battle walls, ballistas, sheaf arrows, and I had so many rounds, so I just painted a bunch of them really quick. And we set up these corners, and the whole dungeon came.
And
we spent the entire session fighting. It was
siege engines, pretty much.
Carnage.
Yeah.
The wizard was kind of towards the top, and he's just throwing fireballs and dispel and lightning bolts. And I mean, we're just laying waste to these guys. And, so the DM had this invisible assassin Quotoan sneaking through the whole thing. I was with him last weekend for the Michigan State game at his house, and we were reminiscing about this very thing. And he goes, I had that guy moving for 6 or 7 rounds, and he snuck up and he garroted the wizard. And he goes, you got 1 round. You need an 0-1 to break the garrote. 0-1, flips the garrote, shoots him, kills him with magic missiles. And he's like, God damn it, I spent the entire night moving him up there, and you killed him. So we're done. Like, the battle's over. Barbarians laying face down in the water, floating, right? There's death everywhere. We just basically walked through the dungeon and cleaned it out.
In one big session.
Yeah. But it was the most epic stupidity we'd ever done, right? Because we finally find this guy.
The wizard, or the one that had run off with madness.
Yep. We finally find him in a D3. somehow he got cured, and he's like, "Oh, hey guys," and we started telling him where he's at. "Oh, you came through the Quoton thing?" We're like, "Oh yeah." He goes, "Oh, did they help you out?" We're like, "What do you mean?" Well, when he went through, he snuck to the top, and if you go to the very, very top, you get um, teleported to their god. And if you say her name and pay fealty to her, she'll help you out. So he does. He calls her by her name, and he does it like he's underwater. Blibdle poop, because her name
Oh,
was Blibdle poop.
Blibdle
So
Pulp.
yeah, so he tells her, "Hey, I got a bunch of friends coming through. Help them out and see their way through to come find me." And she agrees. And we come in and we just laid waste to her entire kingdom. Yeah.
Hey, got a favor to ask you.
Yeah.
Can you make sure my buddies are taken care of? And then they just show up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, Brown Wizard has the spelling.
Yep. That's it.
She has shown up on occasion in the Broasar as well. It's never good when Blibdlepulp shows up. So
No, she's
um
yeah,
oh,
she's tough.
Dornall says that she has Stormbringer.
No.
I'm
Game
not
over.
Hey, is that is she in Dubseron, or is she in Brovenloft, or was she in Trollopulus? Um I don't know, but that I think that right there is something that this hobby can do that I don't know anything else that can do that. Video
Oh no.
games cannot get that out of control off the rails where a guy gets crazy, uh, runs off, makes a deal with a god for your safety, and then you show up and genocide all her followers.
Pretty much.
Well,
I
you
mean, I
should have
actually felt
told
bad. We're
me.
like, yeah, everything's all good. It's good here. It's all good. Yeah.
Oh man, that's hilarious.
And that was under 2E rules back then.
Okay.
And then, we moved to 3.5, which my GM really liked those rules from the standpoint of he had made this big super dungeon. It was like 20 levels. It was baller. It was really well written. I always
Mhm.
told him he should have released it as a supplement, but he never would. But it was really well written. But 3.5 was great because he could do all the templates. Like you could put templates on all the monsters by then.
Yeah.
Because we went through it in 2E rules, and then we had to return to it with 3.5 rules, and he liked that one better because when he was making newer monsters up for it, he could just throw templates on them.
How did you feel about making the switch from 2 to 3.5?
Well, we kind of we knew
Because
it
you
was
and I
going to
were
happen.
talking about the value of those templates and how easy they made things
For him, he
work.
thought, yeah, because he would make all the other stuff up on his own, and he would spend hours and nights just making up sheets for all the monsters and stats and all that. So
Yeah.
for this, you could put like if something became an undead, you could just throw the undead template on it, and it changed their hit dice, and it was all written right out for you, right? So from his standpoint, it was a lot simpler. It simplified some of the rules because we'd play with those for a long time, and
Yeah.
but it still kind of felt like the old rules. It just simplified some things because we played 3.0 for like 5 minutes because they went to 3.5 so fast because they found out a lot of rules in 3.0 were a little broken. Like haste
Okay.
was deadly in 3.0 because it didn't cap it, and we had a ranger that could get 12 attacks a round when he was high
Dornell's
enough level.
asking Dornell's asking AD&D second edition, you like the player's option stuff or play it straight out of the PHP?
We did some of the players' options. Like I said, I had a cavalier.
Because that was the one where all the splat books started showing up, right? Like you could get a book just for Ranger, you could get a book just
Yeah,
for Geek.
we ended up at some point in 2E, we ended up in Forgotten Realms because at that time all the turmoil in TSR, and they wanted something new and fresh. And Ed Greenwood, oh, I've met him too, created the Forgotten Realms, and
Okay.
it was a bigger world. Was a lot more to it. Chaotic Murder created this was Char's character. Char created a wild mage,
Oh, I
and
love those.
we were in Undermountain. We did an adventure in Undermountain where we helped this dwarf ghost reclaim his little kingdom that was down there. And as a reward, and I was playing another dwarf because I always like dwarves, he would change your race to dwarf.
That's an awesome reward.
So he's like, yeah, I'll do it. So, because you couldn't be a dwarf wizard even back then. So he became a wild mage dwarf, or a dwarven wild mage. And a DM had made his own like surge chart. It was like 100 things, and he really elaborated on the surge chart thing. So there's a module called I can't remember the name of it, but you were taking back the dwarven kingdom of Ilfarn, and we're in there fighting, and the wild mage and my dwarf were in this. We're one of the fronts, right? We're fighting in this one front, and there's two other dwarves with us, and we had a lot of fun with this guy because when he would surge, it would always be something like, I remember he tried to cast a haste on somebody once, and he ended up hitting him with a shocking grasp because he surged. So instead of doing a haste, he's like, you surge and your spell ends up becoming a shocking grasp. And we would laugh about it because he'd sit there and the guy would be like, is it supposed to hurt? I
don't feel like I'm getting faster. I feel like all my muscles are seizing up.
Yeah, why am I atrophying? And because whenever he'd surge, we'd be like, "Oh, I'm losing it, and that happened to us. We're up with these two dwarves and we're fighting, and I'm like, "All right, cast a fireball at this stuff coming at us." So he goes to case, I'm losing it, and out of his hands comes a black pudding. I'm like, "Oh God damn it, now!" So I take a lantern, I throw it on the black pudding. So now the two other dwarves are like, "Oh my God!" So now we got to fight this fucking thing. You asshole! And he just laughed. I'm like, "Oh my God!"
I love that a wild mage guy screaming, "I'm losing it."
Yeah, that's how we used to. He's like, you didn't make it. He's like, okay, guys, I'm losing it. And what happens? Oh, black pudding comes out of your fingers. I'm like, oh shit.
I read a comment, and I wish I could remember who wrote it. They were talking about playing Curse of Strahd, and they had a wild mage sorcerer, and in the final climactic battle with Strahd, it surged and it cast mass polymorph on everybody, and everyone in the fight, including Strahd, got turned into a sheep. So like in the middle of their epic battle, there's just instant flock of sheep just kind of milling around.
Yeah.
I love that.
We were doing the that super module. Was it War of the Spider Queen?
Okay.
And
Well, that one starts with the giants, right? And then goes into
something like that. I can't remember.
Ends
all
up
of it,
with the demon web pits, right? Where
no,
you
that's
that's
the Q1. That's Lulf's thing. This was in 3.5. It was called
oh, okay.
War of the Spider Queen, I think it was called. And he ended up with it's a Wand of a Wonder, I think. He always liked the goofy magic items because he would just, he was just mass chaos. So we're going down this one cavern, like passageway, and a purple worm's coming at us. And we're like, oh shit, we got to fight one of these things because they swallow you whole, all that crap, right?
Oh yeah.
So he goes, I shoot it with the Wand of a Wonder, and what I roll, he goes, you polymorph it into a frog. So there's like, 50, 80 hit point frog now running around the Underdark. He's like, that thing was going to really tear you guys up. But he was a really good player too. I mean, he would come up with some crazy stuff too. Like we were in this one, and we were fighting this one thing, and there was these two passageways, and he's like, I don't like this one passageway, so I wall of force it. And the DM's like, oh God damn you! I had a greater Medusa sitting behind that thing, and you always find
just had an instinct for it.
Yeah.
Okay. So that brings up an interesting question, and I feel like this came up on Twitter today, even with a guy named B Dubs. Maybe it was yesterday. what does it take to be a good player at this game? And from your point of view, like if you found someone like me who hadn't played very often and they were like, hey, Stormforge, I got invited to my first table and I don't want to screw it up. I want to be a good player. Like, what is there a list of things you'd give them and say, here's what I would do if I was starting out. Here's the things you need to do first. And
That's actually a good question.
yeah.
I guess it depends on the rule set, right? So probably everything's going to be 5e today.
Mm-hmm. It's the big kid on the block, right?
But it's pretty much everything, right? And it's, look, it's a decent rule set. It's a lot more simplified than those other rules. But there's still some flavor to it, and there's a lot of cool combos to make, right? So
would you say step one is learn the rules before you sit down, like in as far as you can with what resources you have and the books you have access
yeah,
to?
like
Learn your character at least.
we didn't have none of that. We had to actually read the rules and figure it out. Now I used to tell them, go watch some YouTube videos on just the basics of playing.
Yeah.
And then, what do you like to do? Would you like to be, because, by now you've seen a ton of movies and all these other things. Like, you want to be a spellcaster? Do you want to be a fighter? I mean, do you like to be the thiefy stuff?
Yeah.
And pick what you want to do. Like, pick that first. Don't try to do all the things at once. Pick something you might be comfortable with and then learn some of the other stuff. Because if you try to learn everything all at once, it's an overload.
Yeah.
Understand you're there to have a good time. You may or may not die.
Yeah.
But you can make another character up. And look, it's really difficult to get killed.
Mm-hmm.
Be engaged. Nothing is ever off the table.
Yeah.
You always ask, hey, I want to try this. Okay. There's a role for it. Oh, give me a role. Some of it's about luck.
Mm-hmm. So okay, that's like playing your character and then maybe knowing your role, where you fit in the team. Like if you're the thief, you're not going to be trying to stand in the front line, right? You're going to hide in the shadows and backstab and stuff. But
Right.
what else, like from your experience? Because I bet you've played at a lot of tables, and I bet you've when you sit down with someone who gets it, and you also know when you sit down with somebody that makes you want to just roll your eyes so hard you pass out. Like, what is it that the players that unconsciously irritate everybody do that wrecks it for you? Maybe we can warn some of them right now, and then they won't have that bad experience.
So, I mean, you don't have to be a new player for this to happen, but you can sit down with guys that have played this game a long time, like me, not as long, longer, whatever it is. And they, a lot of it has to do with just personality. They just have an annoying personality. I'll tell you in I don't know if he's still on, but in Griff's game in Tonnesburg that we did, they give you a bunch of different characters. You pass them around. You go, oh, I think I'd like to play this guy, and there's a background and quirks and things like that. So the one guy, the annoying guy at the table, picks one who, his background is, if I remember right, something effective. He's always challenging the leader and questioning his motives and in his decisions, because he's just a smartass. So he's one of those guys that will sit there and go, it's not role playing, ROLL, it's ROLE playing. And I get it, and it is. But don't say it 15 times in the adventure, because then I want to throat punch you. I get it. And he kept doing it. I think he knew it was a little annoying, but he kept doing it, which was annoying me. And I'm like, but look.
Do you think there was a certain reaction he was looking for and he didn't get it, so he kept throwing it out there, hoping that it would land?
He was one of those guys that goes, I was playing my character. No, you were playing you with a character skin. And I get it. And that's part of the role playing, right? You get to become something you're not. And that's part of the social interaction or learning how to speak in front of people. Like, I was a horrible introvert. I kind of still am in some ways, but the game helped me come out of that, because you have to interact with different people and you have to speak in a different person. And, you're challenged with some of the dialogue in the game, and, you can back it up and with your character and their strengths and weaknesses, and you barter and bargain and
Yeah.
all those different things that you're going to have to do in everyday life. You get to do at that table, so you're almost like, especially back in those days, you're preparing for life at that table,
Yeah.
especially when you're a teenager, because they're
That's
awkward
exactly right.
years in a lot of ways. Even for some adults, right? It's just it hones some of those skills, and you get to learn different situations, and you can take them into real life if you really need to, if you
Well,
think about it.
I've seen it happen at the just in the little bit of experience that I've had. I've seen it happen where a new guy comes in, and you're exactly right. It doesn't have to be somebody who's new to the game. Um, but if a player joins and is humble and is willing to kind of look around, take cues from the rest of the team, and
Yeah.
then interact the way that they are, I feel like it's not going to be very long before that person gets woven into that group.
And I'll always help the new guys out with different things,
Yeah.
like because you can tell when they're like not skittish, but they're like, "Yeah, what do I do?" I says, "What? Look, you can do that. Yeah, it's fine. You go ahead, right? I mean, it's we're something to try, right? I mean, it's
Right.
not like be all end all. Oh my god, I can't believe I did that. I even had the shortest AD&D Open ever at one of the Gen Cons. We had a player that used to just charge ahead all the time, and I was playing a cleric, and he was playing a tiefling fighter mage, I think, and
Yeah.
he used to always charge in front, and I'm like, quit doing that.
It's always the tieflings.
Yeah, and you know, we were like high level, really high level in 3.5. So I had to defeat augment healing, so I got +2 per level for all my spells. Um, I had the feat divine ward, so I could cast touch delivered spells at I think it was 30 plus 5 feet per level, or 35 plus 5 feet per level.
Yeah.
So at one point, I could stand 70 feet away and just heal everybody, and you could convert your spells to healing.
Oh man.
But I'm always converted to healing, and he'd always be like, "Hold the line," we're fighting big battles. I go, "Don't run up in front of everybody. Stay in the line. And so I'd have to get up and kind of help fighting, and he'd yell at me like, "Heal the fighters." I'm like, "Oh God." I even had a badge made up for that as an
Yeah.
inside joke. So we go to this AD&D Open. It's me, our DM, our other player, him, and another guy that because sometimes you don't have six, right? So
Mhm.
we only had five, but this guy sits with us, and I really feel bad for this guy because our very first encounter, we're moving down this. I forgot where we were at, and outside of a dungeon or something, and we're trying to move as a group, and he just goes, "I charge forward." And we're like, "Oh God."
They should have named his character Leroy Jenkins. Like
Yeah.
that is
Well, out of the shadow steps a hill giant, hits him, crits him, dead, first shot. So, so the one guy looks at our DM guy, and he looks at me and he goes, "We're fucked," because you can't die in an open because you know, it's rounds. You play every
yeah.
day. You have to be the best and to get moved to the next round to be
It's like
in.
a tournament.
That was it. I'm like, well, I guess we can just pack it up. Yeah, sorry, guy, for your experience. And AD&D Open was over for us in 5 minutes.
So he took the whole with his stupid, he took the whole team out with
Yeah,
his
I mean, we could have kept going, but we weren't
oh
going to get the
man.
points. We had a death.
Yeah.
That's huge mark against you.
Yeah. Oh my
Mhm.
gosh. I bet everyone was livid.
That's another guy wanted to throw a punch.
Well, so that's the other side of what I was talking about is the guy that doesn't enter humbly. The guy that feels like he knows it all or knows what's going on. Or it may even be someone who says, "Hey, I need mentorship. I need someone," but then doesn't listen when the advice is given. And I feel like you can start to see whether whether they mean to or even if it's just subconsciously, the group will start to reject that player. And
Yeah,
I've seen it happen, man. I've seen it happen where a guy came in on his first session, wanted to be the runner, and I mean, a lot of experience in AD&D, which is what we were playing, and tried to force things like what you're talking about, and like had one of the worst games I've ever seen. Died a hilarious death.
Yeah.
Because he zigged and the whole team zagged, and he just wasn't in step with us. It was pretty
Look,
bad.
Q Strother Martin from Cool Hand Luke, man. I mean,
Hmm.
you know what I'm talking about, right?
Tell me, I'm
So
new.
Cool Hand Luke with Paul Newman.
The
He's on
only
a
thing I remember about that movie is the digging of the ditch, and then they made him eat a bunch of eggs. That's all I got.
well, he said he could eat 30 eggs, and they didn't believe him, and he did, and he won because he was
Oh,
Cool Hand Luke. So Strother Martin's the warden of the prison,
okay.
and he has this famous speech. It's at the beginning of I want to say it's at the beginning of one of the Guns N' Roses tunes or something, and he's like, "What we got here is a
Oh yeah,
failure to communicate
that's where that's
with
from.
some man you just can't reach," and that is sometimes what it is. And you just, I hope this 4 hours goes quick.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's no way around it.
In the Bro SR, we say you need to play with someone who speaks your alignment language.
Well, yeah. Look, an alignment's a big thing. It's also another polarizing thing. Because some people pick the alignment for the stats benefits, but then they don't necessarily play the alignment,
Yeah.
right? And you kind
Is
of
that
have
one of
to.
those things that you feel like has like lost some meaning or some oomph over the years?
Um, Maybe, you know, it's different now. It just depends because you know a lot of times I play D&D now is mostly at a convention where it doesn't always come up because you're in for 4 hours, so it's hard to really establish
Yeah.
that unless you know part of the description for that event is you know heavy role player, it's alignment heavy, you know, and then you can do that. And some people just do that out of turn because that's what they do. And
Hmm.
but yeah, I don't know. It seems a little bit more different now that way.
I feel like when you talk about people that say, "Well, I'm just playing my role," I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, people in the chat. I'm not trying to yuck anyone's yum here with this with the what system they play, but I feel like fifth edition is very vulnerable to the "I'm just trying to play my role" weakness. I was playing a game, and I'm sorry if you watch this, and I'm calling you out, bro. I have fun playing with you, but you were doing something that was driving me nuts. He was playing a Thrycreen, which, if you're not aware, is like a giant praying mantis. He was a Thrycreen barbarian, and we were in this world, and every single stinking NPC that we came across, he would start grilling them on the basics of like agriculture or how birds work, or, just in his mind, he was from this completely alien culture that didn't get it. And so we're all just sitting here, waiting for him to talk to a halfling farmer about how crop rotation works. And it was just like, it just dropped the whole game on its ear every time he played his character. And I love you, man. If you're still out there watching this, I'm not trying I'm not trying to bag on you, but that one practice that you did of playing your stupid bug did bother me. So I'm bagging on that. Not you, but what you did.
so you know that's part of it because look, you have people that like to be heavy combaters,
Yeah.
heavy role players.
Or even just move the story forward. I feel like role play
Yeah,
can really hit the brakes on the momentum of a game.
well, because you can do that throughout, and it's that would have been kind of a cool thing to do, but you got to also do it in a way that you kind of keep the story moving, but you keep bringing it back in because that's just what you do, you know. But you
Yeah.
can't absorb the whole thing with it, I think, because you know there's a thing about having some type of table etiquette and courtesy to the other players around you, right? And that's why sometimes our DM would make up dungeons. They had puzzles, good combat, some role play interaction, because you know we all had different um, interests in some of those different things. So you got a taste of it all. And that's not easy either, because not every module, you know, you can't be cookie cutter. You know, like the new Middle Earth role playing game is very formulated of you do these certain things and
Yeah.
which is good, but it kind of takes away from the just the natural change of the story, right? The story's going to go where the players want it to some degree. You know, the DM can
Yeah.
move you back towards where he wants it to, but you know, we've done a lot of things where he's like, "Oh, I did all this stuff, and you guys kind of went this way," and you know, but
It
it
happens.
happens, and you don't really try to because you're trying to figure out what to do, and then he'll nudge you like, "Go this way." Oh, okay, we'll go that way. Yeah, you know, and but you know, it's the nature of you squirrel mode every once in a while.
Well,
It's
I
just
feel like
the
people
nature
that
of it.
grew up on a diet of Critical Role, people that have come lately like myself but haven't felt that dissatisfaction, they play it. I mean, I don't want to say like a video game. That sounds like a cliche, but it seems like they're so used to the dungeon master owning a really amazing epic story and then dishing it out to them in pieces and dribs and drabs, that whenever there's a confrontation or an opportunity for choice, you almost feel like this hesitation where they're like, well, what should we do to get the story to keep going? It's almost like a Stockholm syndrome where they're like, um, they are imprinted upon by the authoritarian DM who just has a story that they want to draw the characters through. Whereas the kind of stuff you were talking about back in the beginning, where like you could literally do whatever you wanted to do, and if your character went crazy, then you could have fun playing the crazy character,
Yeah, I mean to some degree.
and it was
Look,
like,
and D&D does not own that. What you just said. I mean, I
yeah.
was at
Hang on a second. Good night, Mike. Thanks for being with us tonight, bro. I appreciate your comments. Go ahead.
um, we were at Origins this year, and there's a group, Lurking Fears. My good friend Matt McLeod runs a group of DMs. He's like a contract DM group, and all
Okay.
the different groups like Mothership and Alien and Cyberpunk and
Yeah.
Cthulhu. He gets all these DMs together, and they run all those games for these different game companies, and Mothership was one of them. And um, we're doing this adventure, and the DM wrote it, because they have those like pamphlet adventures, the
Yeah. Yeah.
trifold adventures.
Yeah.
He'd
Like
made
the
his
haunting
own.
of Epsilon 14 and
Yeah, and he made his own, but he was basically just using us to tell his story like kind of puppets. And
yeah.
my buddy got in on the Kickstarter because it's a really cool system. It's different, it's fun, it's similar to a lot of other ones. Um, it's kind of scary because it's like Cthulhu meets Alien.
Yeah. Well, they have
Um,
like, what is it? The three things you can solve, you can save, or you can survive, but you can't.
yeah,
You can only pick
yeah.
one.
So we were kind of funneled down this path he wanted us to go. Like we were just, his playthings. And in the beginning, he didn't really catch on to it, but towards the end, he was doing stuff where he basically was just open narration and okay, move your guy here, do this, and I'm like, this isn't fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. Mothership's legit, man. It's a good game. It's a lot of fun. Uh, and I've done some quirky stuff in those games that
Yeah.
made Matt McLeod just bust up laughing. Like when we did Cthulhu, when I think seventh edition came out, we were doing a demo event with him, and I screwed everybody so bad, and he thought it was so hilarious. That's playing the smuggler dude. And we went to investigate this island, and because everybody didn't hear from everybody, and there were these special gold coins that were worth a lot of money, and I think I had some, and I was supposed to. My goal was to go to the island and find my friend who had the others.
Yeah.
And one of the guys I was with, he was playing the FBI agent, but we didn't know he was one. And there was two other guys with us, and another friend. He was
Edge man.
playing just some guy. So we go to the island. I end up with all the coins. We find out it's these like fish creatures that are killing everything, and there's these pirates. So we're down by the docks fighting. It's towards the end of the module, and I'm like, all right, I sneak around and try to flank him, and I get near the boats by the dock, right? He's like, okay, you can do that. And everybody's fighting, and they get to me, and he's, what do you do? I go, because I know I got all these coins.
Yeah.
I go, I hop in one of the boats, hit the motor, and I take off. He goes, you what? I go, I'm a smuggler, motherfucker. I leave. And he just starts laughing. He was in tears. And my buddy, who's the FBI, goes, and everybody just turns, they try to start shooting at me, but they all missed, and I got away with the money.
See you, suckers. Enjoy the fish, people.
Yeah. I did the same thing in the Alien RPG. I was playing the engineer, and we got to this bigger ship. Of course, there's an alien on board. I'm trying to repair our ship, but the dock controls are bad. We did manage to get to the bridge and hit a distress call, so we're trying to leave. And we thought we had killed the alien, and it was far enough away from the ship. Everybody get on the ship. I go, I'll stand by the door with my magnet boots. I'll hit the door. When it opens, the ship can fly out. I'll just jump out behind. I'll just grab on behind it. I'm like, okay. So the ship flies out, and the DM, she goes, okay, so you hit the door and you fly out. And I go, oh, hold on. I didn't say I left yet. What do I see on the ship? She goes, you see the alien on the back of the ship. I go, okay, I just closed the door. She goes, what? I go, I closed the door. I said, I'm on a bigger ship. The alien's gone and the distress signal's been made. So I'm just going to wait it out. And they're like, well, God damn it. I go,
That's some elite play, bro.
That's the fun of it, right?
Do you know what it reminds me of, though? Is like that Secrets of Blackmore, right? Like the original Dave Wesley's Bronstein.
Mm-hmm.
And then they played a couple more. I think one was a Western. But there was one infamously, I think it was called it was Banania, a Banana Republic. And Dave Arneson famously put a bunch of factions against each other. Got he forged documents, and so one side thought he was working for the CIA, the other thought he was a drug smuggler. He got paid off by both, and he did what you're talking about. He just flew off with $1 million.
Little fistful of dollars action, huh?
Yeah, and his character won the Bronstein, and it's like you're talking about that exact same experience, and
but in smaller doses.
So that's what I mean when I say how do you be a good player? Not necessarily screwing everybody else over, although that's hilarious, but a good player thinks about what the goal of the character is, and then recognizes moments to take decisive action.
Yeah, and I was really just, but I wasn't originally leading to that. My whole job was fixing the ship while everybody else is running around doing other things. So,
but from the alien movies that the creature always jumps on the escaping ship or the pod or whatever, right?
I didn't know until we ended up getting it, because we could have got to the ship and left before it came to us, but it led to that way, which it usually does.
Yeah.
And my whole goal at the time was just fixing the ship, and so I wasn't doing a lot of the other combat or other stuff. So I knew I'm waiting it out. I'm not going to be heavily involved in a lot of the game, and that's okay. That's the character I chose. So
yeah,
I was doing the engineering stuff. But when it started fighting us in a cargo hold, and I'm like,
Bob says he won.
Yeah.
You won Alien. And not many people win.
I won the internet
horror game. Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, I think I got, because Matt does these prize tables, and I think I got a prize for that, because you get voted, and I got voted high, and I won something like paranoia or something.
Nice.
Yeah. But when I go to conventions, I'll play everything that I don't normally play. That's how I got introduced to Dungeon Crawl Classics.
Yes. And Mutant Crawl Classics as well. Right?
And Mutant Crawl, which I think I like better, because I like playing plantients and mutants, and I come up with really crazy names based on the plant and or mutant, But I was at Gary Con. The first time I went to Gary Con was 2019. Having met Gary, I also met Luke, The next year we went, Luke invited me and my buddy to a frat party because he was going to college in Wisconsin at the time. And
Nice.
we lost touch for several years, but I reconnect with him through the conventions and we're really good friends now. I go to GaryCon now and I volunteer and stuff. So 2019 was my first one. There's a good guy named Bob Brinkman who's deep into the DCC world, salt of the earth guy, and he's running a combat commando tournament.
Yeah.
And I never played the game, but I always wanted to. So I get into the tournament. I come in
Is
second.
that a DCC game, Combat Commando?
No, it was
Oh,
Gary Gygax. When he left TSR, it was one of the first games that he created with Frank Menzer.
okay.
And it was based on 10-sided. It was a unique dice system. You rolled 2 dice to hit, and then that give you a percentage. So you might roll 75, and that was your percentage to hit. It was like an opposed roll type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you hit, you multiplied the 2 numbers together, the 7 and the 5, and that's the damage you did based
Oh,
on,
nice.
So it's really simple. And I remember Menzer at Gen Con back in like 96 or whenever they came out with the game, he was showing us and he was so excited. He goes, look, you just roll this die and that's your hit. And then you just multiply the 2 together. And he was just like, loved it. And I thought, man, this is kind of cool. So I got in this tournament with Bob, and great DM, good voices, very engaging. It was fun and it really kept us going. And I think part of what you said about different players at the table,
Yeah.
the DM also has a lot to do with that, how engaged they are and how much time they're willing to help new players or manage the difficult players or engage the really engaged players, right? And
Yeah.
Bob did a really good job with that. And we wanted to come back. It was a 3-round tournament, and I couldn't wait to get back to it. And I came in second.
Nice.
And I won the game and like the first novel that they had written, a little paperback. So he started talking about DCC, and I'd always wanted to try it. And I went through a 0-level funnel.
Yeah.
So much fun, the 0-level funnel.
You get 4 characters of level 0.
It's like one sheet, just like this.
Ultra
And you got
deadly.
4 characters, and everybody's got 4. So you got like 6 guys, you got 24 players. They
Yeah.
might have 1 hit point, 3 hit points. They all got different luck, and you don't have any classes, but you've got to go through this adventure. But you get to use like in DCC, you have luck rolls, and you can use whatever luck from the highest person on your 4 panel. You can use that
Yeah.
all the time.
Okay.
But the cool thing about it is you start getting invested in one of these guys. Hey, this guy's pretty cool. You get these random items. It's all in the beginning of the player's handbook, how you
Yeah.
make up these characters.
Yeah, you get like a cow, some people.
Yeah, you might get a car, I got a spade, I got this,
You're
it's
a
just goofy
gong
shit.
farmer.
And I got a whatever, a bag of dung. I mean, you got all kinds of goofy stuff. It's all crazy shit.
But it's like when you have nothing else, like you will like find a way
Yeah.
to use that goose.
But you
for your
have this,
advantage.
like we were trying to escape this prison, I think, in one of them or something like that. So we're fighting these things that can wipe us out, but we're trying to kill these things. And you really get invested. It's like, oh, I got to take damage. Who am I going to take the damage on? I kind of like this guy, but he's got better luck. So you start like, sorry, number 4, you were cool for a while, and you just and if you end up with one of those guys, you can make them up a 1st level character, and they have 6 classes: halfling, dwarf, elf, fighter, wizard, thief.
Yeah. And
DCC, and you pick that and you go.
And you don't need to write a complex backstory because
No.
you lived the backstory. You played it. You started him with a level 0 gong farmer, and like everybody remembers when they became an adventurer.
Sometimes I just, that's like a cool O-level funnel. I haven't done that one before. I just go do it just for the fun of it.
Yeah.
And Mutant Crawl Classics is even more fun because sometimes you'll get exposed to radiation and you can mutate and you roll, what do I get now? And I had a guy with an enlarged head.
Did you get a benefit for the big head, or was it just ugly?
He had spikes in an oversized head, and I think he had a radiation thing. So I called him Noggin. That was his name.
Yeah, not good.
And I mutated, and I got these giant insect antennae that did, I forget what they did, some telepathy or something, you know. So it was always like, what do I get? It's cool. You could do a rad burn where you hit somebody with radiation blast, and then I found a psycho telekinetic cat, and you know, it's awesome.
Bob
The only
points
time I
out.
hated MCC was we were fighting on this like spaceship thing, and
Oh,
I got I think I got knocked down to 0, or I got incapacitated. So these robots, they're trying to purge the mutancy. So they took me to one of these little like anti-deprivation pods and turned me to a pure strain human. I was pissed at the end of that module. Like, God damn it.
you know what's so funny to me about that is that like, um, the people that really get into their characters and like want to have like commission artists to draw their good looking character, and the ones that want to have romance in their role playing, which I think is cringe beyond belief, but like they would probably bulk at having their, you know, half elf rogue just getting a ginormous head with spikes sticking out of it. Like that
You know,
style of play, you'd be like,
funny
you made
story.
my
I
guy
think I got
ugly.
the picture around here. I don't know where it's at, but I got into a Kickstarter. It was a DCC Kickstarter, something to that effect, by a guy named Lewis Hofer. And
Yeah.
if you pledge so much, they would drop a character for you. And
Okay.
I had him drop Noggin. I told him it's kind of and he sent me a picture of it. It's awesome. I don't know where that thing's at. Let me see if I can find it real quick.
All right. While you're doing that, I'll just make the point I was trying to get at is that like there's just something different about the kind of gamer that will find out their dude got mutated with a giant head and spikes and antenna and be like, that is awesome, and think it's hilarious and want to play that kind of character more. And when you accidentally get cursed back into being handsome again, you're like, oh man, I'm just a boring old human again. Like that to me is absolutely hilarious.
I can't find that one, but I'll tell you, when I was at Gen Con one year, one of my characters in 3.5, I was playing a halfling monk.
Okay.
I go, what's that like? I got him to 17th level. He was unhittable. His fury of blows, I had like 5 or 6 attacks at.
Did you do the old Johnny Cage shot to the pills?
Yeah.
Like a monk, a
I
halfling
quivering
monk is
palmed a gray
terrifying.
render while we were in the heart of Nightfang Spire.
The speed
Dropped him
bag.
in one hit. Oh yeah, speed bagging the old twigs and berries. So I'm walking around the art show. I don't know if you can see this.
You might need to pull it up closer to the camera so
Here,
that it blocks more of your background.
Oh, where is it at? Oh, here we go. So see that?
Yeah.
I just happened to be walking through the art room.
If you can't see it, just go back and watch the video again and pause it right when it was visible, and that will help with our algorithms here on YouTube. Also, if you want to encourage Stormforge and myself, you can feel free to click the like button, and if you want more of this content, you can subscribe.
Yeah,
so he's got nunchucks.
Yeah, I had and I had a couple commas that were key focus. I just happened to be walking through and I looked at that. I'm like, holy shit, that's a halfling monk. I bought it. I'm like, I would have never been able to get anybody to commission that or come up with this is what I'm looking for. He just happened to draw it randomly.
Just
I was
right on your
walking
vibe.
by and I'm like, I'm taking that.
Yeah.
And I got a frame off of pictureframes.com.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, that's yeah.
So we're talking some of the other systems you play. On the little thumbnail that I had, the part of it was Mutant to Crawl Classics.
That's the Rats of GIM.
Yeah. Tell me about that module a little bit, because when you actually helped me pick that image, and you were like, "Hey,
Yeah.
that's a cool one. I liked that."
So there's a couple, the Barlows, Erica and Andrew, and
Yeah.
they're tied heavily to DCC, and they write their own modules. In fact, Andrew, he does commission sculpting for a lot of miniature companies. They live in Monroe, Michigan, or near Monroe, Michigan,
Okay.
and so they Erica wrote this module, The Rats of GIM, and it's similar to the Secrets of Nim. It's
Yeah.
kind of got that flavor, and that's where they took it from. And um, they had pre-made characters for you. Um, and I played a guy because this is Mutant Crawl Classics. Um, and what you see on the cover there, off on the right, that's Chainsaw Bear. He's got chainsaws on his arms, and you actually
Oh,
find him, and you got to fight him, and he's not fun to fight.
and look at the rats. They got like some kind of
Yeah, there were
mind
these
player.
mutated rats in this. Um, GIM stood for, it's an acronym for their lab or something. So I was playing a guy named Gutface. So I'm a human, and my mouth is in my gut, and I have a prehensile tail, and he sculpted these things in metal. You can find them on their website, actually, if you look. All his minis are on the DCC website. And the tail's got like a flint knife, and I got some type of spear. My buddy's playing an anthropomorphic um, uh, orangutan name. Yeah, right there. Dr. Zayas.
Doctor
That's
Zayas.
Dr. Zayas. He's
Yeah.
anthropomorphic, so he can squeeze into tight spots.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I'm trying to find gut face.
that's him.
Here we
That's
go.
Gutface. I had 3 javelins and a flint knife in my tail. I go, I gotta pick him. He's hilarious. Um, so
Oh my gosh. He's
and
got like
they've
no
they've done a
chin.
couple modules. They're really very engaging. They do all their own minis. Um, and anytime I go to a convention and I want to play MCC, I see if they're there and I grab one of their modules if I haven't played it before. I purposely look for them because I have such a good time with it. Dark Platypus Studio is their studio. You can find all
Okay.
their minis there. They
That just
also
looks
do
like
Weird
fun to paint.
Frontiers. They're you know, it. Those are the things I look for, like something different. But when there's things I know that I know I'm going to have a good time. I
Yeah.
go do that because they do the voices. They get very engaged.
I love the
It's really
voices.
exciting. You can feel the anxiety sometimes in the battles, and you know, it's
And you
fun.
know
You're like,
you're
oh
gonna
shit,
walk away with a good story, which I
always.
think if you can tell, like, that's for me is one of the best things about this style of play is like you play Curse of Strahd and you say, "Hey man, it was crazy. We
Yep.
talked to this old gypsy lady and she read a tarot for us." And it's like, yeah, that's what happens when you play that. And then you come out and share something that nobody's done and it's a
Yeah.
jaw dropper and you can just see like they're like, "Oh, I want to play like that," I love that kind
Yeah.
of stuff.
We played in I think it was 2E. We went through Baba Yaga's hut, and one of the guys ended up with a laser pistol, and
Nice.
it was so different.
So,
Um,
I don't know if he's still in the chat. Rube Jelly, gelatinous Rube. We actually in Trillopolis, Dorna was DMing, and we came across a gelatinous cube, and it had a cowboy hat on it, and my character, the Five Finger Viscount, has wound up with it. So we'll see what that leads to.
the
But
head
I
of the
love.
cube.
Well, we defeated the cube.
Yeah.
But the hat was a magic item, and
Oh,
it has been changing his personality as he's worn it. My
yeah.
voice
It's probably
isn't,
going to turn you into a gelatinous cube.
yeah, maybe. My voice isn't deep enough to do the gelatinous room voice,
Yeah.
but y'all should stay tuned after our show tonight. He's gonna also be live streaming tonight and answering questions and stuff. So
And
when you're done here, hit him up.
the other thing that I play a lot of now is Star Wars D6.
Yeah.
I got introduced to this group, Sparks47 at Gen Con in 2013. My buddy and his kid, he's like, "Hey, let's try this." I'm like, "All right." It was a lot of fun, and we didn't get back to it for a while. Doing different things at conventions, and then 2021, I guess might have been a little earlier now, but I think 2021 I kind of got back into it, and I'm playing it pretty heavily since. And it's based on a D6 Star Wars second edition revised rules set,
Yeah.
and it's super fun. You make a character, you can advance that character. There's they write their own missions, so they're not using any canned missions. I think they're up to 282 unique missions.
Cool. See, that was the game that got me started on this whole hobby, was the West End Games D6
Yeah.
system. It's light and fast, and you get right into the action. It's
When I think of Star Wars, and maybe because I played this one first, I like the D6 system for it.
yeah.
There's, the Living on the Edge with the goofy dice. There's the D20 Force of the Empire, I think it's called. And I associate that rule system with this. I think it fits, at least from my perspective.
The only thing I'm still a little weird about is like the damage. Basically, everyone's got 4 hit points, right? Like you get hit once and you're injured, twice and you're incapacitated, and then 3 times.
No,
you're
that's
dead.
just so how it works is you have
Wounded.
6 attributes, and getting damage is all off your strength. And if you have armor,
Yeah.
then you have bonuses for soaking a physical or an energy attack. So they might roll their blaster to hit you, and that might be 5 dice, and they get a number. And you roll a dodge, and you have so many dice in your dodge,
Yeah.
and then it's an opposed roll. If your dodge is higher than their to hit, they miss. If it's not, you've got to soak the damage from the blaster. So they roll another set of dice, like your damage dice, and your strength attribute, which could be 3 dice plus 1 pip, and your armor, which could be another, say, 2 dice.
Yeah.
You take 5 dice plus the 1 pip, and you roll that, and you have to beat their damage number. If you don't, depending on how much you don't get beat by, you'll take a wound, you'll take an incapacitate. If it's enough damage,
Oh,
you go
that's true.
straight
That's
to 2
right.
wounds.
Because if it was over 2 times, it was incapacitated, right?
Yeah, but so there's a lot of opposed rolling, and there's med packs that'll help you first aid somebody and remove a wound, and so it's fun. It's a little different.
So now the Sparks guys, do they play online? Do they play
Yes.
at competition or
If you look there, they
conferences?
have email group. You can email them and say you'd like to be part of the group. They do online
Okay.
game days every month. They do one weekend, unless it's a convention weekend. Like they won't do one in July when there's Origins. They won't do one for Gen Con.
Got it.
But they do online, and they usually do. They always try to get more people to DM because there's only so many that do it.
Looks like they've got some good stuff for like things I wish I knew when I started.
Yeah.
Authoring advice, Spark Judge's Handbook. Like it looks like they're going out of their way to help
Right.
people.
Because they've taken the rule set and things they think are a little too overpowered or maybe don't fit thematically or something. They will do some modifications, and a judge's handbook has those modifications to just the base.
What era are you playing in? Because if I remember, original D6 was like between Empire and Return of the Jedi, and then as those novels started coming out, Heir to the Empire and stuff, it kind of moved into that.
So through the series of modules, they do different eras. Like the first 11 modules in their world, the rebellion isn't around yet officially. So if you play I play a Rebel Special Forces Pathfinder. So if I play any of those first modules, then I'm not a Rebel Special Forces. I'm just like a mercenary guy. So I wouldn't collect Rebel pay. I would collect just like 100 credits or something. But right now, they're to the point where modules that are written now are post Return of the Jedi.
Okay.
So, but right around that time frame. So,
Now, do you go by the movie canon or do you go by the up until J.J. Abrams wrecked it movie canon? Or
we're
book
not that
canon?
far out. So,
Yeah.
right now, we're kind of still in movie canon, and they do a lot of different stuff. And then every major convention, they'll do these things called seminars or personal initiatives where they'll take 3 or 4 tables, depending on how many people they have, and they have one overarching huge storyline that all 4 tables interact with in different ways. And you can get a lot more um, sweet stuff out of that, like better weapons or ships or, you know, type of stuff. And then you can do these
So
personal initiatives where you can advance certain skills or go do these little one-off solo things to improve your ship's stats and stuff like that.
so you're talking about multiple parties in the same instance, right?
Yes.
Like that's starting to get back into that. I don't remember that being a feature of Star Wars D6. Is that like just experienced guys that know about the old ways, just saying, "All right, we're gonna do a
Yeah. I mean,
multi-party
the
bronze team."
Sparks thing's been around since '95, and they did start with the other rule set. So,
Yeah.
like the last one we did, there's this Overmind storyline where there's these nano droids that are trying to take over the droids that are becoming sentient. So we
Okay.
have one group of higher level people, players, um, attacking from one way. There was another group of us that were doing like frontal assault. You had space attacks, and all those stories that happen at the same time kind of interact with each other. And um, we did another one 2 years ago, or last year rather, where every table had to get so many critical hits. And you had to shout it out to the head judge who was walking around to everything, and you'd shout out, "Hey, we got a critical hit," and everybody be cheering. And this table's like, "Man, we got to get one too." And because it all goes towards the end of the story, and there's some uh, narrative at the end, and then everybody gets this super dope award. Like last year, everybody got X wings, and
Oh, nice.
yeah, it's who wanted it. Otherwise, there's a if you didn't want the X-wing, you'd get the equivalent in credits and something else. And yeah, it's really fun. I
Cool.
like it. A good group of guys too.
Do you have any funny or cool or inspiring Spark stories?
Um.
I mean, you told me one that I thought was hilarious. You sound like you might have been a little irritated. You lost your ship.
Oh yeah. So we're doing a module, and we were there was this like dark side entity, and it was living in this cave. We landed on this planet, and we found a survivor kid, and he had befriended this dark side entity and was kind of becoming like a Jedi, but still young enough where he wasn't like a fully dark Jedi, but he was going to take us to where this uh, friend was that had the Force. And one of the guys was playing a Gungan named Bing Bang, and he plays him just like a Gungan, man. He does just some wild shit.
The
And
thing I love is when you hear that the player has rolled up a gun and named him Bing Bang. I feel like you kind of know what you're in for. Just
he
like
talked
from,
like him too. He goes, "Misa gonna help." I'm like, "Oh god." So
I love it already. I love it.
we find out where it's at, and we were getting attacked by something else. I think some Imperials came down because they were looking for this planet too. At any rate, he's by my ship, and he gets to my ship, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" So I'm gonna take your ship and fly at it. Misa know what I'm doing. We'll be okay. I go, "Don't do that." And he flies my ship into this cave, and it's this large entity, and he uses it like a missile, and he flies into it. I go, "What are you doing?" And the DM's like, because he knows his character, he goes, "He does this," and he goes, Misa got the money to get it repaired if you need a new one. So I had to improve the ship a little bit with shields and hull and all that. So he flies it into this thing and kills it. And the ship survived. It did like 10,000 credits of damage. He goes, "Oh, here's your 10,000 credits." I'm like, "Oh my God."
I see. Okay, there's a divide on Twitter, right, between silly voices versus silly names, and I feel like Bing Bang is like the holy union of both of those.
Bang Bang Gungan with the voice. Yeah,
And he wrecked your ship.
yeah, we do that.
Dang it, Bing Bang!
And the funny thing is, when we were doing this PI or a seminar, he was in our group and he was piloting the ship.
Did you warn them? You're like, hey,
Oh, they
you
all
may
knew
not want
because
Bing Bang on the
he's played
stick.
this guy forever. Everybody knew, like, oh Christ, we're gonna give you. He might as well pilot. He does crazy shit, and he did. And, but it's fun stories.
Yeah.
At first you're like, because I just started this guy and I just got this, and I'm like, oh God, But part of it is losing and gaining stuff, and it's what makes your characters unique and has a history. Like, you don't always want to have everything all the time because then there's no life to that.
Yeah.
And we've lost things. We've lost weapons. We had a guy, we were playing 2E, and you could make your own armor, magic armor, but you had to find the items and spend the money, and it would take a month. And
Mm-hmm.
he was insistent on getting this armor made, and he got this armor made, and it was a singular focus for him. And so we go back out of the dungeon that we're in because he had this other armor, and he finally gets it. It's this plate armor. It's pretty sweet armor. We go back in.
I think I know where this is going.
We get into this huge fight. And back then in those rules, when you got down to 9 hit points or less, if you fail to save on an area of effect spell like a fireball or a lightning bolt or some type of acid damage, you lost a magic item. And the DM would grab your equipment sheet and he would look at what are all the big stuff, right? He's not going to worry about rope, who cares? But anything that is of serious value, he'd look at that and count them up. Okay. And he'd roll a die and he's like, your armor's destroyed. And he literally just paid like $4,000 for it, spent a month of game time.
And, oh man, I bet he was livid.
The next session in, destroyed. Because he rolled a 1. We were laughing so fucking hard.
Bad luck, man.
Oh yeah. We were cracking up.
Okay, so that didn't go where I thought it was going to go. I thought you were going to say the DM threw a rust monster at him or something that could.
Oh no! Oh, we fought those before. We're like, everybody without armor, fight the things.
Yeah, the fighters are in the back unbuckling and taking their pants off.
Well, that was what we did back then, right? When you got to 9 hit points or less, because we viewed hit points as, you're getting nickel and dimed with hits, or they're not landing heavy blows, but you're getting exhausted. Where when you get down to 9 hit points, that's like now you're cutting into the meat, and that's where the damage really starts to have a consequence. So when we were in what we called singles, the butt's puckered up, and you tried to stay out of that stuff because you knew something was coming.
Right on, man. Well,
but that was the fun of the game, right? That was part of the strategizing. Like, how do I save myself but not screw the party over? And look, you got to go back. We'll handle it. And then you start figuring out. You start gaming. Like, you're gonna go down, but I can get to you. So don't worry about this. And there's revivifies, and we'll get. So there was a lot of that going on. But that's what teamwork meant, right? Because you all worked the battle together and everybody had a role, and that was the fun of it.
Well, it's happened again, my brother. I swear, guys, my original idea for this show was that each episode was going to be an hour. I have taken an extra hour of your time. I'm having a blast. I feel like we could do this all night. But we are at 11 o'clock Eastern time. So is there maybe one final thought, like as you look back over 43 years, there's not a whole lot of hobbies that can sustain that kind of attention for that kind of time. Is there?
Scrapbooking.
Okay.
I've been around a long time, man. I got to pick it. We're not the only hobby in town, right?
That's what we go out on, scrapbooking. Thanks, man.
Scrapbooking. I'm out.
All right. Have a good night, everybody. Did you have another one, or is that that could be it? Scrapbooking.
No, I mean, well, what were you going to originally ask?
I don't remember.
It was over 43 years. Has there been any?
Yeah. What is it? What is it that you think keeps the hobby interesting to you? What is it that makes it just something that you don't outgrow and move on from, but it's just constantly an evergreen source of interest?
It evolves a lot, right? And
Yeah.
one thing, like, we got to remember, this hobby is a business. They're out to make money.
That's right.
We're out to spend it and enjoy it, but there comes a time when they start putting too much stuff out and it becomes more business. And we're gamers. We don't care about the
Yeah.
business side of it. But like, I do my best to support the FLGS. I go on to Kickstarters of stuff I'm probably never going to play, but my goal is to help keep the hobby alive. And I have, I can do it to a certain degree, and I have, but I think that's important because with the technology, the internet, the Kickstarters, the painting videos, just Critical Role, all those things are helping grow it exponentially. We were just a merry band of freaks in a corner with cool gaming t-shirts, but it's transcended time. It's the most inclusive hobby I've ever been in. To me, it doesn't matter who you are or how you identify. Sit at my table, have a good time.
Yeah, throw dice with me.
That's how I'm going to do that. That's it, man. And I've made so many friends of so many different walks of life. And, I love meeting new people with it all the time because, most everybody feels the same way. It puts everybody in an equal footing, and you can just, it's a time when everybody can just relax and just have fun and not worry about the world. And that's what I like about it. It immerses me in to the point where I don't have to worry about the shit going on in the world. I can spend 4 hours, 6 hours a weekend just, forgetting about all that and having fun with it, man.
Right on. See, that's the point we'll end on. That's better than scrapbooking.
Well,
yeah,
arguable, but cool.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming on, Stormforge. I hope you had fun. I had a lot of fun talking with you tonight on the show, and I feel like the fun seeped out, and the people watching got to enjoy some fun too. If you're still up and you don't want to go to bed, head on over to Gelatinous Rube's channel. He's going to be answering some questions and stuff. And I thank you guys all for being with us on this journey, and we'll see you next time.